Why? Hello and welcome everybody. So today we've got a really big informative video to make, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right on into it. And it's kind of going to be like a top 10, actually I think top 15 kind of like tips and tricks for Righteous Fire players. But before we get started, I want to go ahead and provide a quick moment from our sponsor, me. So today I wanted to go ahead and make sure that you guys are familiar with my website regarding Righteous Fire. So Righteous Fire does have its own website, Pohx.net. If you're ever stuck at any point in time in progression, remember you can come on over, you can check the crafts. It's got 90% of the crafts. It doesn't have the very crazy endgame ones like I showed for the cogwork ring, but it has most of the other stuff on here that we use for progression. For the average player, this is more than enough from what you need. In the FAQ, we also have sections, so if you're confused, you can actually search. So for example, why we use life tap, right here would be a prime example. And then up on the front page over here, you can see everything organized nice and neatly if you want to browse some videos or just look through some other information. And the last thing would be the atlas. This still has like a little bit more work to be done, but like Harvey Beyond is something I run every league, and here's a prime example. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump on in. So, starting from number 1, Righteous Fire does not scale with spell damage, even though it's tagged as a spell. This means that when you are crafting your weapon or gear in general, you do not ever look for a spell damage roll, because it quite literally does not work for us. That's why I put so much emphasis on modifiers like damage over time multiplier or fire damage, increased damage, area damage, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, like in more detail later. That's number 1. Avoid spell damage. Unless it's an extra modifier, it's not priority. Okay, number 2. Do not neglect your flasks. It's important to automate them and have at least 3% life regen and increased armor. So what does this mean? This means that as you play through the game, and this happens a little bit later into the game, maybe you're in like yellow maps level 80 or so, but you're going to start finding these orbs called the instilling orbs. Instilling orbs, and you're going to find baubles, are very important because you can come to your bench and you can type in full, and you can put charges when reach full, or use when charges reach full. What this essentially means is when monsters hit you, when you combine it with the affix for gain charges when you take damage from an enemy or when you get hit, and you can just roll that with alterations, that means when you get hit, your flash generates charges, and then when it's full, it's going to automatically go off by itself. Now, this is step 1 in becoming much more tanky. You can automate your flasks so you don't have to press them. This is the armor mod that I'm referring to. When you are dropping your body armor and you're relying on a cloak of flame, your granite flask is actually going to give you meaningful levels of armor. You really want to make sure you have this up 100% of the time, unless like you can't because you're fighting a specific boss or something, right? This is very important. The regen craft I was referring to is this modifier here. You can see that when I activate it, I get like 300 life regen per second. Now, I don't remember exactly where to find this as they jumbled everything up this league. You do find this in the actual atlas as you are fighting the bosses. It's going to be right outside of the boss room. You could try typing 3% on here and searching it. I don't know how exactly that works because it doesn't tell me, unfortunately, where to do it. GG, fix it. We need more quality of life. All right. Also, these do not stack, so you cannot put like 3% regen across the board on everything, right? Next up, the purpose of the Archdemon Crown over a regular helmet. Now, on my website and on my videos, I show myself crafting helmets all the time. The beginning on league starts, like day 1 and 2, I typically don't craft on an Archdemon Crown. But then later on, I recommend everyone crafts on an Archdemon Crown. Let's explain that. So Archdemon Crown, if you read the first line, it says -2 to level of socketed support gems. So it's effectively, most support gems gain about 1% more damage per level. Somewhere around there. That's not 100%, but usually. That means you lose about 3% more damage, right? Or sorry, 6% more damage, because there's 3 support gems. However, you gain +2 to socketed skill gem. Skill gems gain like, I don't know, 9% to like 15% more damage per level. I don't know the exact number. It is a large amount, enough to easily outweigh the -2 socket support gem. So, on league starts, the reason Archdemon Crown is so expensive is it's exclusive to ritual content, which is a league mechanic. It means it's not just going to like drop on the floor, right? You have to actually farm this in a league mechanic to acquire it, and then you're going to want to get the Elder Exalt to Elder Exalt it so that you can actually get this easier. There's other ways to do it, but that's typically the best way to do it right now, right? You can come over to Faustus, you can say, I want an Elder Exalted, and then he will sell one to you, for example, 36 chaos would be the cheapest right now here. So you do that, you get the Arc Demon, and then you craft it like you would Elder, and then you basically just have an Elder helmet, but you have the additional +2 modifiers. Very, very good. You're not going to get this helmet. This is a much more expensive helmet. We're just talking about the standard helmet, right? Okay, next up. How Ignite Proliferation works for the build. So this is from Fan the Flames or Exarch Implicit on gloves. I talk about this all the time. This is the #1 thing you can do to boost your clear as an RF build. So a quick demonstration. I'm going to go ahead and like run, I don't know, like, I guess I can go pop in a map real fast. Let's see. So Ignite Proliferation is the modifier that is right here on my gloves. Ignites you, inflicts spread to other enemies within 1.2 meters. You can also get this on a cluster jewel. It will roll on a medium cluster jewel, so that would branch out of here, and it would be called Fan the Flames. Now, the significance of this, because I see a lot of new people asking, why do you run this if you are already running? Also, let me dismiss this mercenary. Why do you run this if you run Elemental Focus on Righteous Fire? Righteous Fire doesn't do any igniting. It's your Fire Trap and your Hinekora. Hinekora is this node right here. You have a 5% chance to explode. When that explode triggers, it's a hit. Hits are able to ignite. A hit this big creates a very potent ignite. So, if I were to just like say run through here real fast, right? And I just throw like a fire trap, you'll see an explosion. Actually, it didn't get an explosion that time. Wow. Okay, surely you see an explosion. Okay, there's an explosion. Now you see these little circles that are killing everything. These circles are the actual Ignite Proliferation. They do more damage than your build. Actually, literally, right? This is actually the secret RF build. It's just a Hinekora character. So if I throw one fire trap here, this whole hallway will implode now. Okay, actually, I don't know why. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. Sometimes you get unlucky, you don't get the explode chains, but you can kind of see what I'm talking about, right? And then when you actually activate your RF and you have good clear on your character, it'll look more like this, where everything is pretty much just zapping. Everything just zaps. This one's a little not fully correct because I'm also using Oriats, but that's beside the point. Those ignites are much weaker than the standard Hinekora ignites. These just help me chain a little bit faster. Okay, let's go back. Got a little addicted there. I just wanted to keep mapping. All right. Why Fire Trap? Oh, I guess in talking about this, which one is better? Fan the Flames has a bit higher AoE than the standard like Ignite Prolif on your gloves, but it doesn't really matter. All that matters is when you're not using medium clusters, then you want to get it on your gloves. So don't worry too much about what's better. Just go with what works for your character right now. Okay. Why Fire Trap is the only option for single target. Now you can technically use Scorching Ray, you can use Vol Flame Blast, but I'm going to explain why Fire Trap wins. Fire Trap has an initial hit, so you throw it, right? That's the trap right there. That trap can explode. When it explodes, it hits, so it has its hit damage. That hit damage can create an ignite, and then when it contacts an enemy, it leaves Burning Ground. That is 3 modifiers on one spell. Not to mention, the Righteous Fire scales the Burning Ground and the initial hit. So if you look at my Fire Trap, it says basically 1.1 million on the fire damage per second. When I activate RF, it goes to 1.6 because it's scaling off the spell damage. Ignite does not scale off of spell damage. Only burning, so in this instance, it's burning. Like Scorching Ray would work too, but Scorching Ray does not have, for example, the initial hit, and it does not have the ignite. It's still okay with numbers, but it is weaker than Fire Trap, and you have to stand still. The only other skill in the game that can do this is like Flame Dash. It has an initial hit, it has Burning Ground, and then because it has an initial hit, it can ignite, but the values are much, much, much weaker than Fire Trap. Not to mention, Fire Trap comes with the benefit of being able to run Reflect maps. If you run something like Scorch or Flame Blast, you can't run Reflect maps, right? So that's why we use Fire Trap. Next up, the difference between increases and multipliers. This is a big question because I see so many comments about people saying that they do ZDPS. A large amount of it is because of this. Not always, but a large amount. So, if anyone played Diablo 4, let's make this really easy. Increased damage. Area damage. Fire damage. Burning. Damage. Elemental. Damage. Minion. Damage. Only if you have Spiritual Aid. These. Put another one. Increase damage. These here are all in the same bucket if you play Diablo 4. And I don't know how much the game has changed because I only played like preseason and season 1. This would be your multipliers. So fire damage over time multi and damage over time multi. So what this means, right, is all of these just get added and these get added, but they're separate. So if you have 600% increase and only 20% multi, you're hitting big diminishing returns on your increase and you need to stack more multi. In Diablo 4 terms, this would be like your, is it vulnerability effect, I think it was? I forgot what it was called. So always look for your multiplier. And a good way to find multiplier without like ruining the build, for example, is jewels. Jewels can roll. So like here's an example. Here is a, actually that's not even a multi-jewel. Here we go. So this one has like 7% fire damage over time multiplier, right? Very, very big that you find your multipliers. Another way to look at it is if you type increase on the passive tree, basically every node in the game highlights. If you type in multi on the passive tree, very few nodes highlight, and half of them are actually just like mastery nodes, right? So like acrimony here would be one, and holy fire here would be one. But that's basically how it works. You really want to get your multipliers online with your increases. And that is why on your weapon, it's very important to look for double dot multiplier because of that. So another multi I could put in there, it's not fully, it's kind of different with how it works, but it's the +1 fire gem. +1 fire gem is a multiplier because it's adding to the base damage, but then it gets scaled off everything else. But that does not work for your RF. That only works for your fire trap. RF will gain level, but it doesn't gain damage from level. Okay, moving on. Why we use punishment over any other curse. So when you take this ascendancy node here, this ascendancy node is called Ramako Sun's Light. Nearby enemies fire res is set to -20. Well, I guess against fire damage over time it's set to -20. This means if you use other forms of minus res, so flammability, elemental weakness, exposure, scorch, combustion, none of those work. They are set to -20. So this means that you want to use punishment because punishment is the only other offensive curse we can use that makes targets take bonus damage. So when enemies are at low life, they take 58% increased damage, right? It's a double-edged sword on Ramako. It's really good for mapping because any Giga Chad super monster res mobs just get set to -20, but normally like they would be much more tanky. But in a bossing environment like say Maven is not just randomly going to gain more resistance, so you would be better off basically like, you know, applying the full spectrum of minus res, but we don't do that. So it goes both ways, right? Not as good for single target, very good for bossing. Okay, next question. The importance of increases or increased life regeneration rate. Sorry, I haven't had my tea yet. So the importance of increased life regeneration rate. Life regeneration rate is a very, very big stat. So in this build, you stack copious amounts of fire resistance because you're a chieftain, right? You want to stack fire res because Sallow Cleansing Water makes it so that your fire res splashes to your cold and lightning. There's no reason to build cold and lightning res when you could just stack fire res. An easy way to see if you have any cold or lightning res is they should be the same value. If they're not, you have a little bit of cold or lightning res. Now, this is providing you with flat regeneration because of this mastery. Regenerate 1 life per second for each 1% uncapped. And then occasionally we take nodes like, say, Sanctity, that's like 1% life regenerate, or things like Righteous Army for 1% life regenerate. You also have things like Life Regen, which is 0.8%, right? These all scale really well with increased life regenerate. Think of it as like the multiplier to your increases. This ramps everything up, right? So a prime example is I guess if I take off these gauntlets, my build's going to break, so I can't really do that. So the best thing I could really show is like with this belt. This belt has an 8% life recovery mod, right? Even though if you look at it, it has 98.5 life regen, there's no way that 98.5 is giving me 400, right? So that life recovery is kind of like the life regeneration here. Life recovery also affects flasks. I think that's the main difference. But this node is very, very important. That is why you want to get it on your gloves. You also want to get it on your boots if you're not using Annihilation. And you want to get it on your helmet, but unfortunately, it's really unlikely to get it on the helmet because you're typically using, you know, an Elder helmet, and you don't have the luxury of picking your mods. That's why gloves, it is absolutely mandatory to get that modifier. Okay, next step. Why we use Life Tap and how it enables Swift Affliction. So in my POB, I have RF kind of in a 6-link, and you can see that Swift Affliction is at the end. And here's why. If you look at your character right here, so you see at the bottom right how there is an R in green here. If you take out Life Tap, the green goes away. Wait, it didn't actually go away. That's weird. Oh, that's Vol Righteous Fire. That's cheating. Ooh, almost just got bricked there. Okay, so the reason the green goes away is because the Life Tap gem is actually enabling a secret duration tag, which enables you to run Swift Affliction. You don't need to know this, you just have to accept it, right? Because, and I believe it's because Vol Righteous Fire has a duration tag, you can create the duration tag on Righteous Fire by giving it Life Tap. Now, to enable Life Tap, because it's not actually getting damage yet, you can see my RF says 532k. We just shield charge, and then we trigger Life Tap, and now it does 639. This is why you want a low-level Life Tap on your trigger gems. So for me, the trigger would be, for example, shield charge, right? I shield charge and I get Life Tap, but you want high-level Life Taps on your main skills, like Righteous Fire and your Fire Trap, because they are going to get the benefit of the higher level Life Tap. If you put a level 1 Life Tap, it's only going to get 10% more versus 20, right? Okay. Why we stack Fire Res and when is it too much? So we actually kind of already talked about why we stack it, because as a Chieftain, we get great benefit from stacking Fire Res in the form of life regen, and also because it affects our cold and lightning. But when is too much? So usually when I'm around yellow maps, maybe white maps, that's when it's not that I'm intentionally dropping fire resistance, it's that chaos resistance becomes a priority. And that is when I typically move on to amethyst rings. Amethyst rings with lots of chaos resistance to help build up the chaos res. That means that I'm not using ruby rings with crafted fire res, I'm using amethyst rings with crafted fire and chaos. I don't know if I have any here to show as an example from my sales. Oh yeah, here's one for example. So this has like tier 1 life with 35 chaos res with like the all res suffix with the crafted with the fractured dexterity. Obviously you don't need a ring this good, but this is an example of when I'm pivoting away from the fire resistance because you want to get the chaos up. Remember that chaos is really bad because mobs have degens associated with chaos damage, mobs poison on hit, things like that. So if you are not regenning because you're degenning, that means you're dying from your own RF, which means that's really bad, right? So chaos res, big importance. Next up, the purpose of going block based plus glancing blows with a Shaper Shield. So if you remember me walking into this map earlier, I was kind of tanking a lot of mobs here. The reason I was able to tank a lot of these mobs, right, is because of my Shaper Shield. Okay, I think my Tempest Shield just triggered and killed everything. Let's just, like, stand here and... Okay, well, everything kind of died already. I guess we could fight right here. So when these mobs are hitting my character, right, what's happening is my character is blocking with a 75% rate. Right, I actually even turned off the spell. Wait. Oh, this is a reduced block map. Oh, no wonder. Okay, well, in normal practice, this would work much, much, much better. You'll be much tankier than me. Normally, you would run around with 75 block right here and 75 spell block. When you take damage and you block it, your shield will proc the recovery. So I heal 4% of my maximum life whenever I block an attack. When you play a build like this and you are layering mitigation by having 90 max res, 5 to 6 endurance charges, critical strike damage reduction, flesh and stone, you're block based, your Tempest Shield for shock immune, you're running Cloak of Flame for Fizz taken as, you get the drift, right? When you are running these modifiers or these defensive layers, you're turning big hits into small hits, and then with the Shaper Shield, you turn the small hit and you completely shrug it off. And the way you easily achieve this block is with 3 things: Glancing Blow, this mastery, and Tempest Shield. So, my spell block is currently 0. I'm going to take this mastery for 1% chance to block spell damage per 5 attack block. I now have 8. I'm now going to turn on Tempest Shield. I now have 33. I'm now going to hit up Glancing Blows. So what did I do? Wait, what did I actually do? Okay, I bricked myself. I don't know what happened to my extra passive point. Wait, what did I do? I'm so confused. Okay, I'm just going to take a point out of here. I actually don't know what happened. You guys can laugh at me in the comments. All right. Well, anyway, we took our Glancing Blows, and now we're 75-75. I actually literally don't know what... Oh, I took that node somehow. Yeah, how did that happen? Okay. Sneaky little bugger there. Okay. And now you can see we are 75-75. As for the attack block, you just basically need Wall of Steel and a shield with at least 25 block, I think, and you're good. Okay. Next up, we're almost done here. How endurance charges make you very tanky and how do you obtain them? So in my POBs, your amulet will have Disciple of Unyielding, or it will have Aggressive Bastion. Both of these will automate endurance charges on kill. You can also get a ring in the early game that gives you endurance charges on kill. That can come from Betrayal Mechanic. Furthermore, you can use your Enduring Cry on single target to maintain charges on single target. If you go to your MISC tab here, or sorry, your charges, you can see that for every endurance charge you have, you get 4% physical damage reduction and 4% elemental damage reduction. Remember, for every point of physical DR, you're making your armor more impactful, which is good when you only have like 7k armor, right? That's why you want endurance charges. They also reduce the degen you take from your own RF, so endurance charges are very, very, very big. You really want to make sure you're using them, especially when you're Cloak of Flame. Okay, next up, almost done. Tooltip is actually accurate for comparing RF upgrades. A lot of content creators will tell you never look at tooltip, and they're correct in most scenarios. But RF is unique. It doesn't scale off attack speed, cast speed, penetration, crit chance, crit damage, right? Doesn't have any of those like weird calculation factors, which means when you're looking at your damage, you can literally just look at the deals 532,000 and you can equip another weapon. If the damage goes down, it's not an upgrade. If it goes up, it's an upgrade. Same thing with your Fire Trap. When you're looking at Fire Trap, look at the one here that goes up when I press RF there, all the way at the bottom, not the first one. Deals 169 or 1,689,000, etc. That is the number you're checking. Make sure when you're doing these accurate tests, you're actually triggering Life Tap. Because if you don't trigger Life Tap, you may be checking accidentally with Life Tap and then without it, and you may confuse yourself. Okay, I gotta go get my stream ready, so 2 more questions. Quality on RF scales your AoE. Quality on shield charge and faster attacks makes you go faster. A lot of people always ask where the AoE comes from. A large part of it is just gem level and quality, right? You can see that the base radius on my skill is 2.7 meters. So compare that to what you have, right? Furthermore, quality on shield charge and faster attacks makes you go faster. So when you're zipping around with your shield charge, if you want to make it go faster, quality is a good place to start. So quality faster attacks gives an extra 10% attack speed, and quality shield charge gives another 20% movement speed. Also, tip for endurance charge generation: if you quality your Enduring Cry, it gets 40% cooldown recovery rate. Very, very big. Okay, next up. RF is a great all-around Atlas farmer. It works for pretty much everything aside from Sanctum. Here are some examples of where you excel. Now, I always say this to people, but then people want me to be specific, so here are the specifics. You're great in Harvest because of your Ignite Proliferation. You're great in Delirium. Maybe early Deli when you're just fresh out of the campaign, you're not very good, but once you get your Ignite Prolif, you are blasting. The more mobs added to your map, the more you trigger Hinakora, the easier your map becomes. Strong boxes are great. You can preset your fire traps, open up the strong box. Betrayal is great. Your character is tanky. You can also always just chain them into mobs and kill them. Beyond is great because it makes more mob spawn. However, Beyond does very heavy physical damage, so be careful on trying to tank them before you're geared. Blight is great. You get Ignite Prolif, you throw one fire trap, the whole entire Blight explodes. Harby is great. I farm Harbinger every single league. Harby has many quick succession hits, which works very, very well with the Shaper Shield. Also, our circle is bigger than theirs. Delve works really great in the lower levels because Delve Darkness hurts your character. RF has an abundance of life regen, so it's actually really safe to delve until you get to like higher levels. You could probably even go above 300, but I don't really delve very much, so I'm trying not to be super specific. Expedition is great. You just throw a big fire trap in there, get a Hinokora proc, the whole expedition's cleared. Breach is great. Early Breach, you may not have this single target to kill the rares fast enough, but as you get more gear, it's no problem. Breach has that expanding circle. You just go and shield charge and explode everything. Abyss is kind of the same scenario. Lots of mobs. You just pretty much trigger Hinokora. Ritual is a bigger circle trapped within a smaller circle. Your build is great at circle mechanics. Bestiary is kind of like Delirium. You may not be able to kill the beasts right away, but as you start juicing your maps, everything is just going to explode. Beasts will naturally just get kaboomed by this because of everything else. Ultimatum is okay. There is actually a cast when stun version that somebody makes that is much like specialized for Ultimatum, so I would look into that. But in general, you just run in a circle and claim your loot with Ultimatum. Incursion is also okay. Might have a little bit low damage at the beginning, but as you scale the damage up and you trigger your explodes, everything's fine. And then I put these are okay. Legion and Essence. Essence, you really don't have the pure single target damage early. Later on, it's not a problem. Legion, you really need to stack more AoE, and you want to be like 100% chance to ignite if you want to try chaining your legions. Otherwise, it's kind of whatever. It's not really that good. Anyway, that's pretty much about it. I covered everything I could at the beginning here. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget, you can catch me streaming live every day, but Sundays at twitch.tv/Pohx. And today is a special day because we're restarting an SSF, and we're playing an LERF build. Ooh, I don't know how it's going to be, so we're going to have to go find it out. All right, catch you guys later. Thanks for watching.